Hey, I'm back. Gonna get sick of me. What does it matter? Anyway, I was just talking with my daughter-in-law, and from here on in, I'm gonna call her my daughter Maggie because that's what it feels like to me. And you'll remember that she's not my biological daughter, but she certainly is a daughter. So she's making Swedish meatloaf tonight. And you know what? And I didn't know this. She is part Swede on her mother's side. Makes a mean meatloaf. With that sauce on it. You know, that Swedish meatball sauce. But it's on lovely little chunks of meatloaf. I do love a good meatloaf. And she makes these mashed potatoes, and I really wish I could taste it, but I remember what it tasted like from before I lost fully my taste. I'll talk about that later. Oh, I gotta put that down. Video. Taste. I'll forget otherwise. It's just the way I am. Okay, so we were talking. She called me this morning, congratulated me on my 1,000 plus subscribers, and she said, I told her about the trouble I was having talking about Dad, my husband. And a music lover asked the question, and I know some other viewers asked the same question. What happened to your husband? What did he die of, etc.? He died of a gunshot wound to the head, self-inflicted. He would have died a long, arduous, and painful death of COPD. See, every time I start talking about it, it's like this flood comes over me, and it's like I see the beginning to the end of his illness, of our lives, of his suffering. So it started way, way back. I mean, he was always a robust and healthy guy, except he was a lineman when he was young, handsome, and single. He was always handsome to me, but he was brawny. And he was working out in Washington State for, what the heck was their name? I don't know. C something construction. And there's something called a hard line let up. I don't think they do it that way anymore. One guy stands on the back of a truck, and the big, long, stretchy wires that have to go up on the big armed electric poles. You see them a lot of times randomly in fields, just lined all up. Well, they did the work for those, and he was helping, and he was on the ground. They tie a rope around the spring, big spring wire, and they pull 6 of them on the rope. They pull hard, and then they let it go, and the spring goes up and over the arm, and then someone will climb that pole and place it. He was one of those that would climb the post, and he'd hang off the arm while he connected the wires. But in this case, he was on the ground pulling the rope. The rope got tied around his arm, and he went up with the wire. It's a good thing it was in Washington State, because he would have died otherwise. He went up 25 feet, and then the rope let go of his arm, and he fell to the ground on his feet. It broke his lumbar and caused a bunch of other issues in his back. And he already had issues because he was a football player in high school, and his coach was an insane person who wanted them to constantly butt heads and wear them out after school every day, so late that he'd have all the young men pull their cars up to the field and turn the lights on, and they never won anything with that coach. And he said once that ass left the high school, they won the championship, but he had already quit because he'd been hurt so bad from football. Really messed up his neck. And so that would cause something called arthropathy. He was all messed up. But he just kept on working. We cleaned houses and offices together until he got into the antique business, which actually stemmed out of cleaning, you know. So he already had back and neck issues, and he had sleep apnea. We found that out when he was painting the interior of the Seabrook nuclear power plant. He had also been, in his younger years, a guard at the gate at that same nuclear power plant. So we discovered that he'd wake up choking in the middle of the night. I guess the paint fumes made it worse. And back then, you know, it was a long time ago. What was that, 1986? This doctor, specialist back then, he wanted to cut all around the face and pull it back and clean everything out. Dennis had a broken nose from a crazy drunk friend who hit him in the nose during college. And he wanted to clean all that up and then sew his face back on. And Dennis came home and he said, ain't happening, and who can blame him? So, and he couldn't, he said, there's no way I can wear a CPAP. And back then they wanted to do that full face mask. It was no cannulas. He had, you know, very severe sleep apnea. He woke up over 600 times every night when they did the sleep test. And he was claustrophobic, really bad. So, you know, that went unchecked for over 30 years. And then, so he was robust anyway. God, he worked hard. You know, he worked hard. He liked to work hard. He liked to work physical. That was just him. And so we got into the antique business, and things were going fine. In 2012, you know, we started aging. We were married in 1985. 2012, he had this episode with vertigo, and he had to go to the hospital that night. I picked him up the next day. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't even get to the bathroom, and it was frightening for him. He felt really nauseous, and so the ambulance came, took him down the stairs, took him out the door, and brought him to the hospital. And then in 2013, he got in a bad accident, and he really didn't need that because of his existing neck and back issues. And something happened to him. It's like all the power was running out of him. And while he was, you know, not walking as much, not doing as much, when his initial, after the accident, because he was a guy who walked a couple miles every night, you know, he tried to keep up his health, plus his work, and ate right, and though he did have a weight problem for a long time in our lives. And once we settled down, because we were roadies for a long, long time, once he settled down, he started eating right and taking care of himself. He was alone 6 months out of the year in Florida when I finally bought a house in Maine. And because my little girl, my youngest, she wanted to go to school. You know, we always homeschooled up until that point. And so sorry. The pollen. Everything's blooming. It's spring here. Hello. Okay, so that car accident. My son Dennis Jr., he stepped up during that time. My poor husband, he could barely lift anything. He couldn't do the shows anymore, and so Dennis started working with his dad for no pay. And Dennis was just so deplete, you know, Dennis Sr. And he got blood clots behind his knee while he was, trying to recover from the car accident. And he came home and he left Florida and he drove home to Maine. And I can't remember if Denny Jr. came with him at that time. And his leg became hot and red, purple, really. Swelled up awful, his calf. And we took him to the doctor. They did an ultrasound. He had 3 thrombosis, 3 blood clots behind his knee. And one was in a very dangerous spot near the main artery, or on the main artery. And she was like, the doctor, she says, this is really dangerous. We need to start you on heparin and warfarin, I think were the names, and blood thinners. And he said, I'm going to, think about that. And we called our good friend Walt, who was a naturopath from Indiana. And he said, do you like pineapple juice? So Dennis started drinking 3 cans of frozen Dole pineapple juice, and very lightly diluted. Walt wanted him to drink it straight up defrosted, and it was so sweet. Dennis couldn't do it, but Walt said, well, just do it to the point that he can stand it. Dilute only to the point. And so he did that, and Dennis drank the 3 cans a day, and then I started looking up all of the produce that is blood thinning naturally. Come to find out that table cinnamon works amazing. And I am not giving medical advice. I am not a doctor. I'm not a naturopath or a practitioner. So please don't, don't. Disclaimer. And so I had called the hospital that did the ultrasound, and I said, hey, could you tell me how big those clots are? And she said, we didn't measure them. So they made another appointment, and it would be a 10-day period. I noticed Dennis's swelling went down, the heat subsided and became a regular temperature in his leg, and we were eating like roasted and grilled vegetables that were all blood thinning, and plus the cinnamon, plus the pineapple. You can't find frozen Dole pineapple anymore. Concentrate, you can't find it. And he preferred Dole because Dole was the only company that did not gas the pineapples before they made the juice and the concentrate. So that's why he liked that. So, Walt, So, yeah, we got him better with that, and we were eating right, and we were walking and sunbathing, and he seemed better, but not himself now. He dragged himself along, and in 2015, he came home in April alone because Denny Jr. stayed down in Florida. We had rented a really nice house in Hudson, Florida. And it was nice. It had a swimming pool. It had a hot tub and a beautiful, lovely screened-in porch, and 2 living rooms, 3 big bedrooms, a couple of baths. It was a really pretty little house and big house. And so Dennis came up, and Mike was getting ready to get married, and so the guys were going to have their bachelor party, driving up the coast together and doing some things. Dennis didn't want to go to the wedding. I'm really sick, he said. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm sick. doctor couldn't find anything. He was nervous and stressed and didn't look right. His coloring wasn't right. You know, I knew my husband, and I knew he didn't look right, but I still got agitated. You know, it was like, you're not coming to your son's wedding? The first child getting married? What's the matter with you? Are you having a nervous breakdown? I'm sick, Nikki, I'm sick. I said, if you don't come, I will never forgive you. I'll drive. He said, no, I'm going to drive myself. And at first he told Michael he wasn't going to come, but I guess something tweaked, and he came, and he wasn't himself. He was worn, but he came. I think I'm going to end there because my mind is a raging torrent and I just need to stop now. Part 1. I'll get to part 2 later. Thanks for listening. Bye.